Good morning and welcome to the Good Morning Education Show this morning, the 28th of July 2021. Just like that, July is almost out and wow, the year seems to be going on a very fast pace. I welcome you to the show this morning. My name is Finfolu Falodun, and on behalf of the Good Morning Education team, I say welcome to our show this morning. We like to recognize our tribe members from wherever in the world you may be joining us from. So please drop in the comment section where you are joining us from. Kindly indicate where you're joining us from. We'd like to welcome you. And to our regular tribe members, we are happy and glad that you are there this morning. Thank you for joining us. Oh, good morning, Gideon Essien. I see you. We miss you on the show, Gideon. It's been we really have missed you on the show. And we're starting, as is our usual practice, we'll start off with the headlines. We'll start off with the headlines in the dailies today that feature or focus on education. And then we would be going on from that to discuss the topic of the day. We have an amazing team of analysts who do justice to the topic of the day. So I would not be doing this alone today. I would be joined by this fantastic team of analysts. And before we go on to the topic of the day, yes, this morning we'll be delving right into the headlines in education, in and around education. And the first headline we have, so VC, we aim to attract African Francophone nationals to Christopher University. The Vice Chancellor of Christopher University in Mowe, Ogun State, Professor Olatunji Oyelano, is making this assertion that the aim is to attract African Francophone nationals to the university. We know that diversity is a great thing is a great thing in learning, is a great thing in teaching also. And just as we were on that headline, one of our analysts joined us. Good morning, Omotola Akishola. You're welcome to the show this morning.
Good morning, Finn. Good to be here.
Great. I know you are a supporter of especially language and culture diversity in learning. So what's your thoughts on Christopher University's aim and what their mission is in attracting African Francophone nationals?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, like to at least invite like education tourism into Nigeria, because like based on all we've been discussing so far, like if the university, whether private or public, can figure out extra funding beyond just the federal government, I think that can help in ensuring that there's this issue of strike or no strike because of the government not paying their salary will not work. And so I think it's a good move. The only question I have is, do they have the structure? Do they have the expertise to be able to deliver an excellent program? Because it will not be great to get started and then not to finish well. So that would just be my only reservation. But I think it's a great move if they can actually deliver on that promise.
Okay, well, being a private university, we may not be able, well, one thing that is interesting for me in CLIMB is that private institutions usually get all of these systems working well and working fine, and the government institutions somehow just find a way to bungle it. So we can almost be certain that for private institutions, they would have this system up and running smoothly. We hope again, it's almost becoming the norm. We hope again that this works out fine. Our next headline: UK envoy Lord's Guinness Nigeria scholarship scheme for Nigerian students. The UK Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria, Ben Lewin Jones, has commended Guinness Nigeria for promoting job creation and scholarship schemes in the country. What's your thoughts on this, Omotola?
I think it's a good one. Finally, they are not just investing in Big Brother Africa and a lot of those meaningless shows that does not really help the bottom line for students and for um, helping youth get employment. And so I hope that the scholarship scheme is not just for both those going outside of the country to study, but also will include those that are staying within the country to study as well. I think if they can provide that scholarship for the best of both what both those that are leaving and those that are staying, I think it is a fantastic idea, and that they're actually using some of the funds to do good. And so, and I know that it's also like an international business. So I wonder if other businesses, whether regional or Nigerian owned, local, will take their hopefully join and support in creating this kind of initiative and have a business with a social impact kind of thing where it's not just taking and taking from the consumer, but they're giving back in this form as well.
Yeah, we really need to be able to give back. Thank you for that, Omotola. And now to Oyo State. Governor Makinde lauded for appointing Bauchi Emir as Lautech Chancellor. Okay. Uh, do you have any thoughts on this?
So 1 minute, I'm just trying to read a little bit uh, about why he's doing that. Okay, let me see. Uh,
Well, most, if not all, federal universities and state universities that I know of have traditional rulers as their chancellors. And as far back as I know, I grew up around a university community. I have always heard the names of all of these emirs, especially for the Southwest. They have the emirs as the chancellors of the university. And I always wonder what exactly is the role, because well, for convocations you see them coming in all of their regalia, their entourage. That really was it looks, well, for me it's a ceremonial position. I'm
I
just
agree.
wondering.
Yeah, because
I
the
just
question I
wondering.
have also is,
Yeah.
are they qualified? What was the why did they choose the person? What was the recruiting like? Is that the right person for the position, or is just because they're trying to be politically correct and religiously correct and ethically correct? Because based on what the headline read further in the body. He said the reason why the governor was lauding them was because, irrespective of ethnic and religious, whatever differences, that they're making it um, like they're making it invisible in regard of disappointment. But the point is not about just doing it for political correctness. They have to, can they deliver? If they cannot deliver, then it doesn't make sense. They're just figureheads. And then at the end of the day, nothing is going to improve. So while it may be a good move on the surface, but is that really what is best for the university, for the education in that particular state? So that would be my thought.
Yes, as long as the role doesn't interfere with teaching and learning, they can continue to be decorated and showing off culture at the university ceremonies as much as they want to. Okay, our next headline: Experts advocate technology-driven training to improve education outcomes. Stakeholders in the education sector recently converged virtually for a webinar titled Extended Reality: Improving Education and Enterprise Outcomes, designed to foster technology driven training among educators. Yeah, for me, technology-driven training for educators is non-negotiable at this stage of education, at this stage of our lives. But let's get your thoughts on Motala.
Yes, I hope it was not like the story that I saw some days ago where they said the is it Malawi president that took himself and 10 of his delegates to UK for a virtual conference. But let's leave that. But I think this is wonderful and it's great that they're driving that. And I think we need more advocates to drive these and definitely ensure that these exist and these work, particularly not just the education, but the support system, the technological support system to ensure that the delivery of this learning can actually happen seamlessly and can still be of quality, even if they're not going to have the face-to-face component to it as well. So I think not more than ever, we as Nigerians, as students, they definitely need to have this option and alternative. Because even before the pandemic, you notice that we don't even have enough universities and learning institute to take the number of students that sit for night, WAEC, JAM, and the rest of them. So if we can get this right, I think this will really help alleviate those people that have to wait year after year because there are no, even if they pass their exam, but because of cutoff mark, because of lack of space in the university for the major they are going into. So I really hope that this development is continuing to be fostered and we can actually do it well.
All right, thank you. Moving on, retail store to raise 2 million naira for 400 out of school children. The Skit store, a one-stop shop for office, school, and lifestyle supplies, has announced plans to raise at least 2 million naira for 400 out of school children in Nigeria. I mean, talking about giving back to the society, giving back to the customers, giving back to the consumers and to clients. The Skid store, really, this is a good one. Um, Next, Nigerian school children don't know what a library is, says Arek Bashola. Do you agree with him, Omatala?
Whose fault is it? That's my first question. How many years? Oh, he's like 60 something years old, right? These are very Weshela. It is part of the legacy they are leaving behind. That is just the truth of it. So just saying that they don't know a library, I think they do. They have a theoretical idea of what a library is, but to actually experience it in its full self, they don't. I can agree with that. So it's not about not knowing. It is about actually having the experience, having the opportunity to have something that meaningful. Because I know it's not just about the schools. Do we even have a library for that is in the city, in the state? We don't. And so yeah, I can agree partially with him that yes, theoretically they do, but in real life experience, maybe not.
Okay, the issue I have with this headline, it might not be what he said, and it might be, but we're known to speak in absolutes. So to say Nigerian school children don't know what a library is, it's like saying all of Nigerian school children don't know what a school library is, and that is very false. At least we know that for maybe for some government schools, not even all, for some government schools, they might not have functional libraries, and state libraries are really not that functional. So just like you said, the finger is pointing right back at him and right back at the institution that he represents, which is the government. What are they doing to ensure that we have students who are not reading about libraries and who libraries are is not a foreign idea to them? Okay, we'll get it right someday.
Because they keep saying that the state has prioritized, what do you call it, education or whatever. I still hate seeing those kind of comments when they are not specific. What do they mean by prioritizing education? Are they building a library? What is the projected date of launching it? How are they going to add that? So it's not enough to just say that Nigerian student, like you said, I agree with what you said, that that's a blank statement, a generalization that may not be necessarily true for all the Nigerian students. But yeah, it can be very irritating.
Okay, our next headline, MasterCard Foundation, Beyond the Classroom. educate 6,000 children on COVID-19 protocols. A non-profit volunteer organization, Beyond the Classroom, in partnership with the Mastercard Foundation, has organized an awareness campaign for 6,000 children in Nigeria on COVID-19 safety protocols. I think this is very welcome. Seeing the illiteracy on COVID-19 that is out there in the society. So if we can reach the families through the children, this is a really good one for us. What do you think, Omotola?
Yes, I think this is great because sometimes, even if adults will not listen to instruction, if they teach the children will say, Mommy, Dada, you should not do this. They taught me that this, and so they can be second teachers and trainers and educators for their children and their family that this is not the right way to do it. So I think that's a really good move. And I applaud MasterCard and the nonprofit Beyond Classroom. I think is run by Raquel son Daniel. So they're doing great work, and I'm sure that if Ugochi was here, she will have been able to comment further and really applaud them too. So I think it's good, and like if you train a child, you're also training the family too, because those children they can be sticklers for rule. I know I have a 4-year-old who will tell me, no, this is the way to do it. My teacher said this is the way, and she believes that teacher over me. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. There's a 3-year-old that sometime last year was telling us, the adults around her, don't touch your mask, don't put your hand on your, which is what many adults do. You see us trying to adjust the mask and you're putting your hand right on the surface, which is not supposed to be. So let's hope that we really can reach the adults community through the children. Great one, Beyond the Classroom and Mastercard Foundation. Forshaw School displays pupils' talents in art exhibition. Talk about STEAM education. Mhm. Omota, do you have thoughts on this? Or do we
Yes,
roll on to next year?
yeah, I think that it's a good thing that they're prioritizing at education and their exhibition because sometimes the world is so much focused on math, science, STEM, and all of the like of them that we forget this other part of education. So I think if they can do the balanced view of giving students who might be really inclined to art the opportunity to exercise their talent, to train on it, to practice on it, then I think it's a really great move and I applaud them for it.
Great. That's great. And the last headline we'll be taking this morning says, again, Yaba Tech ranked best polytechnic in Nigeria. The Yaba College of Technology has emerged as the best polytechnic in Nigeria for the second time in the Webometrics ranking released in July. This for me is a feat, and this is something that polytechnics should maybe frame and make their banner like, you're not insignificant. All of that race for conversion to universities and all, just stand out and be the best at what you do. So that's really commendable, and congratulations to Yaba Tech. Do you want to add anything to that, Omotola?
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations to them. I think it's wonderful, and I really hope that they can keep it up. And yes, other universities, other polytechnic can learn from them that they can still be the best, irrespective of how they might be view or attitude towards polytechnic education. I think that might even improve the attitude and perception of that as we continue to grow. And yes, I agree with what Ayo Bolanle said about the 2 million and the 400 children that but I think the that particular store is located in Abuja, so most likely it might be in the north. Just to answer your question, that was in the comments. But yes, absolutely,
Well, I think 2 million to be shared among 400 students is better than nothing at all. So yeah,
absolutely, I agree.
the starting point, and when we bring together all of those little drops of water, we have a mighty ocean. So yeah, if the government is not doing it, and we have corporate organizations and private organizations doing these things, then we should applaud them and thank them for at least helping and contributing their quota to the development of our children. And before we go on to the topic of today, we will be taking the grant of the day. So over to you, Amatola.
Thank you. So the grant of today is from the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Science, and the deadline is August 15, 2021. So in about a month and like 3 weeks from now, or less, the grant amount is up to $1 million. And the field of work that you can apply this to will be vocational trade and education, educational access and equality education, higher education, literacy, academic scholarship program as well. And the applicant type is government entities, so universities, polytechnic, college of educations, and the likes can apply. Also, non-profit organizations and also individuals. So if you're a person, you don't have a non-profit, you don't work for the government, you have your own business, you can definitely apply. And the funding can be used for training, capacity building, fellowship, and then the location is any country within the African continent, and then it can be anywhere in the world. But so far, the work will be done in any country in Africa. Then you qualify at least preliminary to apply. So feel free to check out the website and make sure you put in your proposal before the due date. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And we will be diving right into our topic of today, which is tackling adolescent tantrums. Tackling adolescent tantrums. I'm not sure there is any aspect of child development or raising a child that is as challenging for parents as the adolescent stage or the adolescent age. When children are transiting from being children to adults, the society doesn't see them as full adults yet. But at the same time, they're not kids and they're at that point of their lives. So it could be a very, very challenging time for both parents and the adolescents and the children at that stage. And that's what we'll be looking at this one. Can we understand them a little better? Can we feel them and get into those things that we're going to try to attempt to get into their heads this morning. And I don't think that should be too much of, I'm not envisaging it to be too much of a problem for us, knowing that every one of us passed through the adolescent stage. Now, what time of in what generation it is that we passed this stage is a completely different question. Yes, from generation to generation, there are different peculiarities for each one. So um, trying to trying to fit one generation or putting the expectations, transferring expectations from one generation to the next might be a problem. But before we even delve in at all, let's see who is an adolescent. And Omotala, would you like to take a stab at that? Who is an adolescent?
Absolutely. According to the definition I know through my training and my education, it's like from 13 years old upward. That's what is defined as like an adult. So they call them preteens. And so from age 13, I don't know what if Nigeria have a specific definition for adult, but that's the overall like general word definition. And so these are like young people. They are not adults yet, but they are no longer children. And so they're in the in between phrases and trying to figure out and understand their own value, their identity. So it's a lot of transitional stage. And so at that point, they're shaping up on who they are, what they want to be, how they want to show up in the world, what they afford. And that's also where there's a lot of peer pressure, a lot of like concern about their outward appearance and a lot of things in that regard. So it's a whole lot that they are dealing with within that transitional stage. So I'll call them people that are in transition in general, beyond just the age definition for them. And welcome, Ogochi.
Good morning, Dr. Motola. Good morning, Finn. And good morning to our viewers and listeners.
Good morning, Ugochi. Welcome to the show this morning. We've missed you. Network has been funny. We see you and then we can't hear you, and then we can hear you and then we can't see you. But we're happy that we can see you and hear you this morning.
We thank God for this miracle.
Yes, so we're happy to have you back. Uh,
Okay, so we're trying to define adolescence, and I have seen quite a number of parents say they celebrate, oh, my child is officially a teenager once the child hits 13, and sometimes it gives me a little worry knowing that teen age, yes, it is those teen. So from 13 till 19 is what we define as the teen age because of the teen that is behind the figure. But in practice, a child could hit adolescence before 13 because development stages or development speed and how children grow, mature, and develop is different from one child to the next. So sometimes a child has already hit adolescence before 13, and the parents are not, they don't even know because they're waiting for when that child will be 13. And then when it gets to 19, we say, okay, yeah, so the teen ages are over. This child is now an adult. And sometimes this maybe constitutes a problem for parents and for the child. WHO actually puts adolescence between 10 and 19. So a child could have developed into an adolescent before they are 13. But Ugochi, I would ask you this. Why do we struggle? Why do we struggle with adolescents as parents, as caregivers, as educators? What is it about them that makes it looks like generally the adolescents and the older adults in their lives are usually at loggerheads. What's responsible for this?
Okay, so usually adolescents, they're at that phase in their life where they're trying to get their own identity, they're trying to be their own person, they're trying not to be a daddy's boy or a mommy's girl, they're trying to create that their own individuality. And so they just want to break norms, they don't want to fit in, they want to test the boundaries and see what will happen. So they're basically experimenting, and that's why a lot of parents, a lot of people who work with teenagers are usually worried because it seems you've told them what to do, right? They just feel like they want to do the opposite and see what you're going to do. They just want to check, So it's that phase, and it's a phase that needs a lot of wisdom and tact, because if you want to use force to achieve something, they will show you, they want to show you that they have a strong will also, right? So a lot of wisdom is necessary. So I just think it's because they're trying to get that identity, they don't want to be tied to anyone's strings at that point. That's why they seem to act up. But the thing is, if we do a good job when they are younger, we keep sowing those seeds. So even when they want to act up, they're acting up within certain kinds of boundaries. Because the truth is, they want to show some form of individuality, right? But it's not something that is irredeemable. Where it becomes a problem, where it becomes problematic, is when you are trying to enforce, you're trying to dictate, you're trying to mandate, and they don't see a way out. Then they want to act in the opposite direction just to prove a point. And so a lot of wisdom and tact is necessary, but it's basically because they are seeking identity, they are trying to form their own person, and they don't want to be tied to anyone's string. Because again, they might be experiencing something in school where they are seeing what other adolescents are doing, and they don't want to be, don't want peer pressure. They don't want them to talk down and say, you are just still a mommy's boy, or you're just still a daddy's girl. So they want to make those decisions. That's why you would hear things like, a boy who on a normal day, normal standard has always been when the mom drops him off at school, maybe they exchange pecks or a hug. When he's drawing near and she tries to adjust, no, 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 no. He will resist it because he doesn't want another person to see him, right? So it's just because they are trying to, create their own individuality, and they do not want it to seem like they are tied to an adult, and they also do not want that their peers to make fun of them based on their own unique situation. So that's actually what causes it to seem like the adolescent phase is difficult. And again, I think some hormones get to play. I think hormones get to play also because they are having all these hormones and all that. Yeah. So back to you, Finn.
All right, thank you. See this hormone issue, I don't know. Hormones and what they do with us can be interesting. But okay, I would ask Omotola this. What did you wish that your parents knew when you were an adolescent?
Hmm. Plenty of things, oh. Because me, when I was growing up, I had a lot of like issues. Like my confidence was shaking, and like at a certain point, I used to be very bold and brave, and I can speak to my parents about anything. But once I crossed over to like, so this was what happened. I was in a public secondary school. I went to St. Luke's Grammar School from GS1 to GS3. I was in the boarding house because yesterday when we were talking about hostel experience, you guys did not hear that part. But it was an interesting time. But part of it was because of the not so great education system. I was behind on every level because there was always strike. We didn't have teachers out of like 10 teachers that we're supposed to have for each term. We only had five. I had to be paying my friends in private school to borrow me their notes for us to photocopy or copy for us to teach ourselves and those kind of things. So after my parents got so frustrated with that, and after GSC, they said it's time for me that to leave the school and transfer me to like a private school. And I struggled because I couldn't resume until 2 weeks before the end of the first term for that SS1 period. And like I said, I was in science class. I was supposed to be a medical doctor then. And when that happened, by the time I got to that school, I had a lot of like self confidence issue. My English was not that great versus those students that have been there since GS1. My appearance then, because I had to cut my hair when I was in St. Louis Grammar School. Then showing up there, most of them were not cutting their hair. So I was just like this strange, tiny. And then also growing up, I was so thin that people can see my brain, my veins. So they used to call me the girl with the green vein because you can see through. And someone said, do you have AIDS or something? So all of those things sort of added to the whole like that shake in self-esteem and self-confidence during that period that was still growing. I think I was about 13, 14 at that age. And then to now make matter worse, at the end of the whole first year of SS1, I was asked to repeat because I was just 1 point away from the overall mark for the 7 classes I needed to pass to move to SS2. So those periods were very, very difficult for me. And I think that's why I was so motivated, and I started my own nonprofit, and I care about education now for young people because of all of those things I went through. So I wish my parents, like, yes, they were supportive, they loved me and everything, but they didn't understand what I was going through, the peer pressure of having to show up every day in school and having to walk through the class of those SS2 students that went ahead of me before I could go to my SS1 that I had to repeat, and all of those like self-confidence issue, self-esteem issue, and how people would laugh at me, call me a dollar, the failure, and things like that. And so there was no extra counselor. Yes, they would say they love me, they would reassure me when I get home that I was my day, but I couldn't tell them and explain and tell them all the stuff I went through, the bullying and all of this kind of thing. And so it just made me shrink. It's made me so for like almost a year I struggled, and I had to figure out a strategy to cope because I was afraid to go for breaks because I knew that those bullies were going to be there to laugh at me, and it's always like a walk of shame. So I rather do it twice a day than 3 times a day. So it's like once I get to class, I'm like until 2 p.m. and when everybody has left school, I am not leaving my class because I wanted to reduce the level of interaction with those people that were just out there to make fun of me and all of those kind of things in that regard. So I wish maybe they had better, I could have opened up more, but at that point it didn't seem like negotiable to sort of like open up and tell them all of those things. And there was no like help or support within the school system to sort of like also help me through. So I had to basically be my own counselor, my own psychologist, and my own social worker to walk through it and really build up the muscle to overcome all of those things. And so that was a bit detrimental when I was in that stage, and we still have some effect now, but not as apparent as then. But so that would be my own experience that I wish they could have seen beyond just the fake whatever confidence I had at all. To see that I was really struggling during that period.
Thank you very much for that, Omotala. That's been very vulnerable and letting us know. Wow, she just dropped out. Okay, I'm sure she's going to should join us again very soon. And while Omotola was talking, we were joined by the delectable Mrs. Rhoda Odigbo. Good morning.
Good morning,
Morning,
Finny. Good
Lord. Welcome.
Jake. In fact, I think I was so blessed joining smack at the time when Omotola was talking, Dr. Omotola, by the way. And it just solidifies, reinforces everything I have said or believed about student retention in school. I've always had very strong opinions about it. I am against it based off of certain principles. And one of the ones that I even hold on to without even diving into the other things that is around it, that surrounds it for the development of children. One of the reasons I am against it is that I don't think that schools do enough to declare a child unfit to move to the next stage. When I engaged with certain schools and I asked critical questions like, how long did you work with this child? How much have you measured their progress? Show me a chart that shows a growth and a decline per subject area. Show me the many moments when there was parental engagement to track where needs to be solved and what needs to be solved for. Usually when I dig into those many questions, I just give a few examples, and this is just only on the side of the school. I always have always found the schools wanting. Many schools that are quick, especially in a story like Dr. Omotola's, that um, 1 mark to get into the next grade. It's
Like
insignificant.
that's so unfair.
Big in the big picture of this, completely insignificant. And 1 mark made one child scared, made one child less of themselves, made one child who everybody thought was confident to become someone who is afraid to even say a word or to step out. There's a lot of assumptions we make for children in schools. There's a lot of assumptions we make even as parents. And this is a great example almost that you need a platform to continue to share this loudly. Because when we speak to educators and parents, these are the things that they don't hear from the first person point of view. Yeah, let me just stop before I start ranting.
I was going to come straight to you while she was talking, like seeing that one of the places where teen tantrums are handled or mishandled is in schools. So it looks like teachers are out to like clip the wings of, like, oh, I remember one of the teachers, I had always liked to wear fashion rings. I just like the feel of rings on my fingers and very thin necklaces. It's just my thing. It's not because I'm trying to copy anybody. It's just my thing. So I had a friend who traveled at a point and she came back with gifts for everybody. And because she knew that I liked rings, she bought me a number of, they were plastic rings, fancy plastic rings for girls. And I remember one of my teachers saw me with the ring one day and said, you have joined, you started advertising yourself for boys. Why are you wearing? And the smack she gave me that day, I can almost still feel it now. And in my head, I'm like, what is wrong with me wearing a plastic ring with jelly on it? How does that tell? How is that an advertisement? I don't understand it. So when teenagers, adolescents express themselves, and the school seems to have made it its responsibility to cage them, to silence them, to take their voice, to remold them into the image of what the educator or what the school expects them to be. Not necessarily the right image, but because I have a preference for, maybe I have a preference for a particular style of hair. So I believe that is all that makes a girl a responsible girl. what role really should the school be playing in helping adolescents sort out these emotions, sort out these feelings, find their true identity, and guide them to that place where they grow up to be well-rounded adults? I would like you to answer that, Mr. Jibo.
Thank you. I think a great question, and I like the background that you shared. I recall one day seeing you when you were in one of the shows. You mentioned that you didn't like people touching you on your body, and not just because it's not because you can't handle it, but look, you can speak to me from wherever you are. You don't need to touch me. Sometimes we are a combination of multiple experiences that we have had in the past. Sometimes even, and I'm not laying claim to this being the reason why you are like that, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with being like that. I can be very claustrophobic, um, and it can just be that general peskiness of people touching me. And just don't touch me, because touching me brings back certain memories I just don't like, and to answer your question, what role should schools play? I think ultimately, we'll always say it on this show that schools must be a platform for students' complete full student expression. And what schools should do, in my opinion, is to provide multiple opportunities for that expression. And that's where schools that don't get it right, and that's where they miss it. For instance, there is no reason why a school should call themselves a purely science school without understanding that when even in the world of science that there is art, and that within science where you can find multiple artistic expressions, multiple drama expressions, multiple presentation expressions, multiple videography expressions. There's so many things and so many pathways that schools can have, to help them to allow children to find the expression. But let's even go to the culture of how you look, the etiquette of how you speak, how you address other people. Um, you do have situations where there are schools that feel that if you don't dobale, you are not greeting. What happens in those kinds of school, with those kinds of school experiences, that those schools quickly forget that not everybody comes from that background, and that you have to have one thing right. Rights, the rights of people must be taken into consideration. Do we like um, to see our cultures displayed very well in our schools? Sure. I mean, when a child is wearing a ring, it's supposed to ideally trigger something. But I think I will end by saying, when you explain the why, I think what's missing mostly is the why. Why am I saying you shouldn't wear a ring? Imagine the teacher or the school saying, we don't want you wearing rings because when you wear, there'll be multiple moments to wear those rings. Right now, we want a uniform form of existence in the school. We like that you can express yourself this way, or we'd like something that represents what the entire school population would like to do. We love that you love these kinds of things, but you know what? For this period, just let's not do it. That's what no, that this is the character that we want to go. Or sorry, this is the look that we want our students to have. Sometimes rings communicate wrongly, not because you did anything wrong, but because we just don't want it to become flagrant. Because some students, in your case, it might be a way something that wouldn't distract you. In another child's case, it will be something that distracts them as they study. So for that reason, we want to, there are multiple. What I'm trying to say is there are ways to think about getting people to do what you want them to do, but getting them to understand the why. Why am I doing this? Why is this particular to the school? Why should I feel connected to the school's values, etiquette, and vision? Students need to know it. And maybe one last thing is that we always forget that there's something called student choice and voice. And those things, when you bring students into the community of taking decisions, they help you decide. And funny enough, students actually make stronger decisions than even the schools when they come together. So having a student body and a student council membership, the people who represent the students while decisions are being taken, is very key.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, that if that explanation had been given to me, so it had made a lot more sense. Uniformity. Yeah, so it made a lot more sense to me than to just say, oh, it was to attract, but it did not make, I couldn't see the correlation between something then the earring I'm putting on could as well have attracted anybody if another piece of jewelry could attract. So it didn't make any sense. But and this takes me to the next question that I would like for Ugochi to answer. When adolescents express themselves and show us, they express their talents, or there are some children or there's some teenagers that you would see. I think the adolescent age is where you see a lot of expression of hairstyles. You see people want to go on dreads, they want to tint their hair, they want to have multiple piercings, they want to have tattoos, because they just either they've seen it on someone and it looks good, or they just feel that is who I am. Now, what are we afraid of as adults when we see these expressions? What are we afraid of that we're trying to curb by clipping the wings of these adolescents?
So usually when parents and adults who take care of teenagers give all these rules and regulation, many times it's not coming from a bad place. Of course, there are those who are probably already beefing the children, especially if it's a teacher or something, and they're there, and maybe the child looks confident, and then they just want to basically just make you feel low. There are those people, but majority of the time, they do not have bad intentions. It's just that when they were growing up, they probably didn't have people who had nice conversations with them about these things. And you can't give what you don't have, right? So because they didn't have it, their own way of showing love is tough love. So maybe based on what they have seen, their experience of someone who had dreads or who had tattoo was that the person was irresponsible, or they saw the person smoking under the bridge, and so they just assume that everybody that has it, you are already walking towards the direction of being irresponsible. Do you get? So for them, they are just trying to in their own way put boundaries. Yes, that's the word. Put boundaries in place so that you don't now spiral out of control. However, because the world is really changing and we are getting more information, we realize that when you keep on coming from the angle of just being negative, you are not going to get the desired change or reaction that you want. So you've got to be more creative in how you communicate why you don't want them to do certain things. And I really like the example that you gave and Mr. Digo just talked about, because when they're also human beings, they can reason. When you reason with them without necessarily making it seem like they're evil, I think it's easier to get through to them, as opposed to if you just come from a negative angle. And for that to even work, it has to have started from when they were younger, because you can't just wake up one day and start telling them, oh, don't do it like this, because if you do it like this, it would work, and they will be suspicious. But if over time they have seen you sharing information with them in their growing years, explaining, and they are seeing the benefit as they grow, they make more decisions, you explain, they see the benefit, and they keep on doing. So when they get into those teenage years and you're also telling them, okay, so I know that this is the time you want to try on different hairstyles. Okay, it's okay to try different hairstyles, but personally in this house, maybe these are the boundaries. I wouldn't want you to cross over to this side. So maybe you want to maybe relax your hair a bit, maybe for the guys, and do all those carvings and all that. Okay, we can allow that, but have you seen maybe dyeing your hair green and red? Maybe for now we can't accept that. Have those conversations with them, because when it is just A and B, there is nothing in between. You are not, you are kind of stifling them, right? But when you are willing to make adjustment, that's what will make them say, oh, my mom is cool, or my dad is cool, right? And you should you should also be intentional about talking about the values, the things that are underlying, because when they can see that you don't mean evil, you're actually just trying to protect them based on the things you have seen, it is easy, as opposed to just saying you want to become like the prostitute, or you want to become like the cultist. That's just like, they'll just look at they'll just look at you like, what's going on with mommy or dad? And that's why you keep on hearing teenagers using this word, my parents don't get me, my parents don't understand me. They keep saying it, and it's not because they actually, they just want you to at least listen a bit and be willing to shift from your extreme. That's actually what they're asking for. They just want to see that you're willing to shift from the extreme, because really there is no rule that says because you made your hairstyle a particular way, that means you're going to be wayward in life. It's not true. It's not true. Yeah, so many times parents are just afraid of the fact that children are going to spiral out of control based on their worldview, their experience. But if again these parents have seen, they have a, should I say, a a broader worldview, and they have seen experiences where the hair did not change the character of the child, the certain mannerisms did not change the value or the deliverable that this child was able to produce out of their life. It's easier. But if they've seen negative, it's just easy for them to connote certain behavior, certain traits with the negative, as opposed to seeing how it really is not the cause of that negative trait or behavior. Back to you,
You
Faye.
know, I could just, yeah, say if I could just jump into what Safety Chick just said. My own personal story is that I like what Safety Chick on worldview. My mother's worldview was that, I mean, she was still is a strong born again Christian. One of the exemplary Christians I have to say, if I even if I have to say it myself. And she didn't. Her worldview was that it was wrong to wear trousers or pants as a young female. And in my head, I thought whatever reason that was what it was for. It was she had the wrong idea about it. And the time she was telling us, this was what was going on in my head. And I can tell you that I was likely like 15, 14, 15, 16 when she started becoming very tough on that. And in my head then, I would think, but I'm safer wearing pants. I mean, why is it comfortable for me to wear a dress when I'm going out, when my dress can really easily be thrown off if I was under attack? And I didn't quite get it. So of course, then you're unable to express yourself to your mother and to share those kinds of comments. Of course, on the flip side, now my kids can tell me anything. But my mom was the most lenient mom. My mom, um, when people say their parents beat them, I never got any beating from my mother for one second. Neither did my siblings. But that was her work, and she was very strong about it. And I could just couldn't even express to her that, Mom, it's not even safe for you to do that, for us to do that. Then sometimes when I would go out with my friends, I would dress up with a dress and take my pants on there. What's the point? When I get out of the house, I'll change and I'll wear my pants. And ultimately, when I was in school, I used to love makeup. And I used the black pencil to do makeup for everybody, including myself. And till today, I love to do makeup and I love to have big hair and I love to dress up, fly. But I am the most ethical person you can ever meet. I love books, I love reading, I love studying. These are the things that tickle my fancy. So if you look at me, you will get a separate understanding from who I really am. I'm in the world of books and research. That's who I am. But I'm also at the same time very conscious of fashion. It's easy for me. I don't have to think through it. It's just conscious. But that doesn't change who I am. And my values are completely up there, high up there, even if I have to say it myself. So there's a conflict there. And that's why people must be careful about their worldview at the same time insisting on their worldview on students without making it make sense.
Thank you very much for that. Before we go on to take our final submissions, Gideon Essien has dropped some really thought-provoking comments for us, and I'll just read through them. He says the purpose of the style of schooling, not education, is to break the child into conformity, not to draw out the best in the child through self-realization. The good child is the child that obeys. Shaming is a general tool used. I have come to realize most adults do not know better. It was done to them, so they just hand the methods down to the next generation. Parents are afraid, we are afraid, that's the children, will bring shame to us. The society will affirm or judge the parents based on how much the children can conform to the norms. You hear words like, you will not bring us shame. Some parents might not think there's anything wrong with it, but they would always think, what will people say, especially in very religious circles? I think the parents also face peer pressure. And I agree that peer pressure is not something that ends in adolescence. peer. It's just peer. Peer is people who are age mates with you, so you can face peer pressure for your entire lifetime. Of course, you even do face peer pressure your entire lifetime. That's why you see mothers in school competing. Oh, what who chose the best school party? Who chose the best birthday party? Whose child looks is not wearing the same shoes to school? At work, it happens. Colleagues compete
Party
against
card,
each
pass
other.
iPad.
Thank you. Neighbors compete. Whose house looks so. Peer pressure is not something we outgrow. So it's not something we should continue to hamper on for adolescents. But as we round off, I would like to ask Omotola this question and also get her final thoughts. When from all that we have said, it's very obvious why we see teenagers throw tantrums, as we would term it, as tantrums, like, oh, they're just looking for attention, they just want. But when in prioritizing the needs of the child and the needs of the perception of the society on the parents, how should parents balance that? Which should they put first? Their name, their identity, their reputation, or the balance of growth for this child growing up?
Um, Thank you for that question. I think they need to put the need of their children first, because people have already said, like, there are so many quotes about this that said, like, the home is where a child is either make or mad. So irrespective of what happens in the school, if the home is not a safe place, is not a safe haven for that child to be open and honest, to get the support they need, that's how they're going to act out the more, because they're like, well, nobody really cares, nobody really listens to me, so I'm just going to keep acting out. So if there's a deficit in the home, in the attention that is being paid to a child, and I know it's not easy because they may have like 5 children or three, or they have other responsibility, but making that time to really spend time with it. And that's why I think for me, like, now that I'm a parent, it's so important to me that even though my kid are 4 and 2, I make the time for them, even if just 10 minutes a day, to ask them, how are you? What are you doing? What do you like to do? What is going on with you? If they're crying, if they had an issue, explaining the reason why I said what I said or I acted the way I acted to them. Say, this is the behind the scene of why I didn't want you to do this. It's so important. But growing up, like, I am sure most people, they're like, oh, because I said so, and that is the end of discussion. I think that does not work for going forward. If you want to build better teenagers, if you want to ensure that the tantrums don't get out of hand. So yes, the name and protecting your identity is important, but it's garbage in, garbage out. If there's instability, if there is lack of that, like, understanding of your child, then they're going to act out more because they want that attention that you're not giving to them. So then they keep rewarding and reinforcing negative one, because the children and the adolescent figure out the, well, if I did something negative, that's when they'll give me the attention I need. But why don't we even applaud the positive? Like, it's so easy for us to go to the negative and then hammer on that and amper on that and amper on that. And then it's like you're psychologically training them to say, well, it's only when you act wrong, that's when I will give you the time of the day. And then that reinforces it, and then that keep happening. But if we can figure out a way to balance both, like encouraging, giving them positive before they go to the negative, I think that can make a lot of difference. So as much as your name is important, like, think of the meaning of my name literally in English. It means child is equal to wealth. That's what I like to call it. And so it's like, if you take that time to learn to love your children, to understand them, it's equal to that your identity in the future. Like now, like when I was 17, that was when I left Nigeria to come and study here in the US. When my parents couldn't trust me to go forward, I didn't know anybody in the US. I was probably the first in my family to ever travel outside of the country and all of that. But I didn't turn out wrong. I didn't all of those kind of things. So I think if they can make that time in the beginning and initially, it will make a difference in the long run, to protect their name, to protect their identity, and all of those external stuff that they think they need to protect first before they protect their children. Thank you.
Thank you, Omotola. And I know that this is an inexhaustive topic, but we will just do what we can this morning. And before we take our final goodbyes, Ugochi, what's your concluding thoughts on the topic this morning?
I'll just say that parents should try from when the children are not yet adolescents to build that rapport, build that friendship, so that it's easier to achieve some things when, yeah, if because even a well-behaved child will give you issues in adolescence. But if the foundation is great, it makes it easy for them to reason with you because they have good experiences with you. However, if that is not the case, they're already in the adolescent stage, you've got to try to build trust, because when you build trust with teenagers, it makes it easy for you to influence them. But if they can't trust you, even when you try to be nice, they're a bit skeptical that, okay, what is she trying to do? So you've got to find a way to build trust, build that rapport, build an opportunity for bonding on a continuous level. It has to be consistent for it to work. So you can't just do it 1 day, 2 days, and then you're tired, did you not respond? No. You have to invest that time, and over time you will see great results.
Thank you very much. Over time, we'll see great results. And I will just say, as we round off, that parents should try not to project their fears or their mistakes on their children. If you make certain mistakes at a point in your life, it is not a guarantee that your child will make the same mistakes. What you need to do is to guide them appropriately. In fact, holding the reins on them and trying to hold them back is what is likely to cause that cycle to repeat itself. Just be open to them, be honest with them, have honest conversations with them. In this part of the world, parents don't share their failures generally. Everybody's parents came first in school, and we wonder whose parents are those that came last. But if we're open and we let them know, oh, these are the struggles I have, age appropriate, definitely, but these are the struggles I had growing up, they will pick certain things from there. And it's easier for them to relate and interact with you as the parent. And as a round off, we're glad to have our dear esteemed executive tribe member, Olatunde Adebayo, back. He's been away for a while, and we thank God um, for keeping you. I see from your comments that there must have been an issue of you got into an issue of insecurity, but we're glad to have you back. You are welcome back. And just before we left, Mr. Itai just could not allow this to be a ladies' meeting this morning. Just had to show his face. Okay, so hi, we'll see you.
I'm saying hello to Ugochi, not to you. So, Ugochi, hello. Dr. Motola present.
Okay, so since you're showing up at the imagine you said hello to only Ugochi, and you see the internet did its thing. Okay, so this morning we're going to round off with our payoff. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you Gideon Essien. Thank you Ayo Bolanle Aino, who is fast becoming a steady tribe member. Olatunde Adebayo, and to the others who we have not, who we didn't get their comments today. We hope to get your comments tomorrow. Thank you to all our analysts for being here. Dr. Omotola, the great Gochi, the safety chick, Rhoda Odigbo, and Mr. Rotimi Eitaya. Thank you very much for being here. And as we leave this morning, we will leave you with our hot statement. It's quite chilly where I am this morning. So we're leaving you with our very, very hot steaming cup of chocolate as we see you
I
this
don't think
morning.
it's finished. This is very
Uh,
good.
let's go, Motala.
It's
Yes.
It's
always
always
a
a great
great morning
morning
on the Good
on
Morning
the Good Morning Education
Education
Show.
Show. Have a
Have a great day,
wonderful day,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Enjoy.